journey to Premier League iqala via Dribbling Wizards.
Oh, okay.
So I'm playing for the under-20s, lapha Eskom, and Swallows, Highlanders, Dribbling Wizards. People are there to watch. It's a final, and I'm playing a brilliant game.
Okay.
And then they gave me a notebook. I'm a national court. A story. If I get a story, I'm hired. I sat there at the national court for the whole day, taking notes of what had happened, who has beaten who, those disputes. And I came back and I wrote a very nice piece, assisted by Mbongeni Bingo Mbingo. So I know I shouldn't say this because no, I used to think that I started entertainment in this country.
No.
And then I became demanding of setting the standards. And my colleagues that I was privileged to work with, I took over the Saturday paper following the death of Vusi Kininza.
And they moved Nimrod.
And they moved Nimrod to Sunday. And because Vusi was in the Sunday, right? So some of my colleagues in the newsroom had earmarked that position.
I know.
I'm just there at the entertainment, and then suddenly I'm becoming an editor. So there was a lot of things that were said.
Yeah.
But one that stuck with me was one colleague of mine, God bless his soul, who said to me, "You're a lawyer. Meaning to be given that position." And I had never even imagined I wanted that position in my life. Journalists are just there, because they are doing someone's bidding.
Okay.
Yeah, it's hard. So you can imagine in narrative, from an observer. But the observer, in fact, I was talking to someone, I like to make examples. I was talking to someone who asked me, manje sifuna ukudila ne independent newspaper. So are you guys independent or what? Think about it. Oh, what do you mean are we independent? Yeah, but you guys are the state paper. Okay, so is the Times a state paper also? And I said, what do you mean? I said, yeah, but the stories we publish are the same stories the Times publishes. So there is a lot of factors, though, to put into the pot that affect us. And the courts is a big issue. I think over the past 15 years, the courts have been the biggest enemy of progressive journalism. Biggest. I was telling students at Kwaluseni that I still don't understand how this country did not stand up to fight that judgment, Yakelani Smilan. I don't know. Two things that came to mind when I went into vets. I'm going to do this for my people back home who must know that this journey can be traveled. The second one is that I'm going to lead because I know people are going to question everything about me.
Yeah.
So I was in class very interested, extremely, because I wanted to absorb so much. I had a conversation with Victor Kameta one time.
Okay.
And I was upset with him because he had walked into the newsroom, spoken to someone, and walked out. And I knew it was about a story. Okay, so I said to him, why are you going to that guy and not coming back to me and telling me what you were talking about? And you know what he said? And God bless his soul, that man. Puti, your life is in order. I don't want to compromise you. Barometer problem. So you don't understand media then. And Paul will forgive me, but I give an example of Lofla. Lofla owns a newspaper. It's called The Times. Can Martin criticize Lofla? No. So why do you want me to sit and in fact, flip the script? I criticize government. And I get into trouble for it. But I still believe that it's right to say, this is wrong, this is right. But other people think it's just basic, it's just normal.
Because I
should do more. The media in this country is not united. The media cannot sit like this, you and I, and discuss issues of journalism and how we handle stories.
Yeah.
And that is what has let the industry down. In media, unfortunately, has got into this space of rivalry. I was telling the guys at Kwaluseni that the problem with media in this country is that the owners of the media industry don't invest in the media. So, siyakhicita nje, the Times is still the Times. But you don't get to see that, Lofla makes so much millions and is thrown in $1 million into the business so that the business
Can expand.
How has the media expanded? Has it expanded? When I was doing my research, I was shocked. This field we are in really hasn't developed beyond 1996.
For real. So, Mbingo, thank you so much for coming to the bridge. And I know you're a busy person, and it's really a pleasure to have you around. It's been a while. I'm wondering, why did you even make the time? Because people would have said, hey, you're a hot potato in the bridge, and a person in your position would not want to come to such a platform.
Good morning, Mbongeni. Mbongeni invite. I think you've been persisting, and I finally thought, it was a spur of the moment decision. Also, you know what? Let me do this thing, because sometimes we in the media space don't say much. We don't speak. People don't know who we are. People don't know how we see issues. So I thought there was probably going to be value in me sitting here for the first time. With you. I haven't seen you in, I think it's more than, when did I finish at Vets?
It's been a while.
It's been a while, yeah.
Actually, I saw your daughter. I was surprised. She's grown up. I was talking with her mom.
Yeah.
She even took pictures.
Yeah.
She called you actually.
She called, she called me.
Yeah.
So yes, it's fantastic to have to discuss issues with you, and also maybe your audience will get to see a different side of the media space, journalism, because it's still journalism, right? Yeah. But yes, I know to a large extent your readers and followers will be surprised to see me here as well. I'm surprising myself.
But I'm curious because, in the media space, people, our readers will not know that school were in the field and you recruited us when we were very young. One of the things you used to say is that a journalist is not a story.
Yeah.
So people don't know you because you don't tell your story.
I don't tell my story.
Your job is to tell other people's stories.
And people always criticize me for not speaking out. Look, journalism is a big monster, but it's also a beautiful thing if you do it for the right reasons. And I was brought up to believe that we put others first. We are the last people. Our job is to make sure that we represent the people that read and consume our media. So people don't want to know about me. They want to know about what's going on around us, around the country, around the issues. So I always take that position to say, shame yati mineng sasekashane nekuthi ngaba the story. If you make me the story, I panic a bit,
Especially because you're not used to being the story.
I'm not wanting to be the story. Yeah.
And actually, I discussed this with my friends, and I look at some of these online newspapers where the journalists become the story. We're brought up in a wrong way.
Wrong era. Wrong era.
Wrong era of journalism.
Do you know, Mangoba, just before you ask me your next question, let me tell you a quick thing. I have presence on Twitter.
Yeah.
And you will rarely see me
tweeting.
Not even tweeting, talking about the political space in this country.
Yeah.
Sometimes I say because my views are protected for the newspaper I work for. Number two, because if I pronounce myself in a certain way, then it dilutes when we handle a story. So then I handle myself that way to say I am very respectful of the position I hold, of the views I hold. So especially because I write weekly. So if I'm going to speak this way and suddenly that's who I am.
Yeah. But let's go back a bit because, when I knew you, you were more or less Bingo's Jive, Bingo's Jive. It was a column, basically, right?
Yeah.
Did it come from football or from the column?
It came from the column. In fact, it came from, Begi Makubu will tell you that story. There was a guy called John Kwelane. I think you will know him, South African columnist, journalist of note, editor. And he used to write a weekly, John's Jive.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So then I took my one to say Bingo's Jive.
Oh, okay.
And yes, it was on entertainment and he was writing on politics, but I liked the way that he shaped his views, he shaped his arguments, and I felt, okay, so you can get into a space where you've give your opinion and analysis on how you see things.
Oh, yeah. But where does the word bingo come? Is it from high school, from home, or it's a new thing?
No, it's not a new thing, definitely. It comes
Okay.
it comes from
On the
yeah,
mic,
yeah.
yes.
It comes from my upbringing.
Okay.
Mbingo Mbingo.
Okay.
So my family called me Bingo, just remove the M. Yeah. But it used to be used Nabang Tsetisa or thereabouts. So I used to think of it as a negative name.
Okay.
So much that my friends Nasakula, those Labakula Namje Moben, they used to sing a song. There was a farmer, and whatever his name was. I used to be so angry. And I used to fight, but the name stuck with me.
Okay.
So I got to school, I was Bingo. I got to high school, I was Bingo. I started playing football, I was Bingo. Yeah.
But people talk of fighting, people forget because they've seen you around Babane for so long. They forget you're a Manzini boy through and through.
I am Manzini, I am Mbuleni, I am Lutse. So just a quick one there. In the upbringing, this now I reflect. People from Lutse will tell you ngakulela khona.
Yeah.
But also people from Mbongeni will tell you, oh, we know this guy from Lapekotas.
Yeah.
People from Manzini will tell you, I'm a Manzini person because ngakulela la Manzini Lutse corridor, right? But people from Babane also know me from Babane. Yeah. Because Nakvalitikolwa, my mother used to take me to visit my uncle. So then I would stay in Babane for those couple of weeks or months. And then Pinzangbi. So I have depth here and there in terms of the upbringing, so that Msunduzang wakhona.
Okay.
Born and bred.
Oh, yeah.
But how do you become born and bred Msunduzang and born and bred Lutse? You know, the type of thing. Yeah. But that also allows me, I think, gives me the perspective I have and the character I have. Exactly. Yeah.
But also, it's interesting, readers may not know that the Salesian guy. How were contemporaries at the time in Salesian? Most of them eventually became big.
Yeah, all of them became big, and contemporaries also from football, eh?
Yeah,
because at a young age, I played football. I played football Lutse for brothers, and then for killers, and that doesn't happen because these two teams are. And then and then I dabbed a bit for Sipofana Nationals. You remember that team, Boymota's team? He was setting it up. It was new, and then the guys mostly that were in my class were with Villa. Which is the Manzini Wanderers.
I know.
Cotsvale, yeah. And then Mbabane, again, as a young boy, I played Corporation for Corporation All-Stars. So, because I love football. But yes, I've grown up with a very large group of people who have gone on to bigger things. Many of these guys, probably didn't see me being where I am today because they were the ones more fashionable, more contemporary. So yeah, I don't know where I would start to name names, especially if you were at Salesian during our time. Salesian was the school, right? St. Michael's was the school. St. Teresa's was the school. So that's my link of people I grew up with. Yeah.
So I'm curious because you keep on mentioning football. People cannot believe when I tell them, my younger brothers, the bingo you know is a bingo of football.
Yeah.
So you eventually ended up at Mbabane Swallows. Was it because professionally you are in Mbabane Swallows, but at heart you are Mhlambati Rovers? Were you always a Mbabane Swallows person?
I was always a Mbabane Swallows fan growing up.
Okay.
Yeah. And I have very nice stories to tell about growing up. My mother is a Highlanders person.
Okay.
So, but upbringing, I never used to dream I could play for Swallows.
Yeah.
I remember when I was younger, there was a game, Swallow, Kasomhlolo, of the two teams that showed up. I walked from Lutse to the stadium to watch that game. So I always had a thing for sports. In fact, I tell the story that football to me was my escapism when I was growing up because it was challenging growing up.
Yeah.
And my upbringing is such that when because I don't know if you want to know this, but angikhulanga namagwami. So magwami bengimbona ngala maholide. So I ngakhula ku family the extended family, and I was the youngest. and bengithumeka angifuni ukusho ukuthi bengihlushwa but njena in the end you would come back home and want to see your mother and want to talk to your mother and those type of things. So utive ngathi uyahlupheka ngoba phela umncane vele tawuva ngathi uyahlupheka. So but now we are esikolweni uhamba uyodlala around, you forget your issues, you forget the problems you go through. So for me football was always that part. Even today I use it to distress, to forget about the issues, just get straight into watching football. So I never used to think I could do anything else other than football, by the way.
You've never ventured in a sport, swimming?
Swimming, swimming. but being thankfully at Salesian, there's all these other disciplines you can go into. So I tried swimming, I did tennis, I did basketball, I did volleyball. In fact, I was captain at volleyball. My group of friends, we were dominant in sports. We loved going everywhere. Where there was just athletics, we were there.
Yeah.
So I did some long distance running for the school. I did also from 2 I was playing for the national team. Benedict Bennett recruited me into the volleyball team.
Oh.
Yeah. So I was that kind of guy growing up. I was very interested in the activities. I was interested in trampoline. Trampoline was fabulous. I think this is why I ended up being a goalkeeper. Because
but talking of that, sorry to stay with thought. Were you always a goalkeeper or you started playing?
No, I wasn't always a goalkeeper. I was a striker. And I was extremely talented. I know this because my group from Lutse, we would walk to Boyane, Mbegelweni, Zombotse to play, and I would be the one that they want because I had a very beautiful left foot.
Okay.
But nang figure a corporation, one of the things that happens is our goalkeeper goes missing, and we're playing an important game, and then they say, "Sit a goalkeeper," and I say, "I can try." And then I try, and then we win, and I play a blinder. Next week, we call it goalkeeper. So then I start being a goalkeeper.
But if you come to Mbongeni Swallows, I was talking to Caesar, seated here the other day. He was talking very nice time of his time. Were you there during that era of what was your era?
And that guy was, you know what, with his long legs.
Yeah.
He was a star. He was a dribbler. He was neat. Agawi.
Wait, so when Umkanzile kuna?
He was just ahead of me. He was, so at the time, so my journey to Premier League, ikala via Dribbling Wizards.
Oh, okay.
So I'm playing for the under-20s, Lapa Eskom, and Swallows, Highlanders, Dribbling Wizards, people are there to watch. It's a final, and I'm playing a brilliant game.
As a goalkeeper.
Okay. So then I get to hear that bayang funa be Wizard, bayang funa be Swallow, bayang funa be Highland.
Yeah.
And 2 weeks later, this guy, his name was Jose Villapoca, comes to the training at a corporation. He pays for me, as I'm now going to play for Dribbling Wizards.
They're the Premier League then?
Premier League, yeah. Top club. They were top 4 then.
I remember.
And there's a friend of mine called Dennis Masiga who was a goalkeeper, and I think that also shaped my goalkeeping because as soon as I became a goalkeeper, he started training me. Okay. So he took me to Wizards, and I signed because of him.
Okay.
So I was his understudy more than I was just a first team, and I was young. I was 20.
Okay.
So I moved to Wizards. So when Wizards gets relegated, I spent 1 year, 2 years sign anywhere because now I'm a journalist and I'm busy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Then I trained with Highlanders to be a striker because Bebana support to and I thought so and Diga Josiah Dlamini is really training me, and I can feel you know what, I'm going to play. Then Sandy Lezwane na Tisha Dlamini just call me and they say, listen, when I'm fine, and they send a car.
Oh, then that's how you switched?
That's how I switched.
They'll never forgive you, guy.
My mother never forgives.
You've already spoken about journalism. Then how did you get into journalism? Because I would have imagined you're a sports person, you'd have gone that way, or maybe tapped into something else.
Journalism is actually how my life has been. As a child, I was smart, I was bright, I was active. I loved writing.
Okay.
As I said, Nankula Sebangane Elutse, the family I was with, and God bless this family because I am who I am today because of how they shaped me.
Yeah.
Every Friday, we would be forced to read a novel.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the kind of family. And back then, that was a big thing. So I started reading. I enjoyed reading. And my English writing was brilliant at primary, brilliant at high school. So I was introduced to a newspaper around about Form 1.
Okay.
Because we would walk to Salesian from the bus rank, talk about what was in the news.
Oh, yeah.
So then we started buying the paper, walking with it too, and then reading it in class.
Okay.
And then I became fascinated. Ngakubona la magama ala bantu la. Hawu, ligama lakho nje libe ephepheni vele.
Like the authors.
The authors, yeah, lama journalists.
Yeah.
So then when I was in Form 4, I started looking at it deeply. I would like to write. And I remember there was a time lapho khona the paper was just the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I started reading and following news. So that's how because of my literature reading, I thought I would want to be able to tell stories.
Stories, yeah.
Yeah.
So who recruited you to just apply, walk into the office?
Ooh, Mangoba. You know what? I was never recruited. I just never gave up. So when I finished Form 5, I walked to the Times and I said, I'd like to work here. And they called Mashumi. Go to Msebenzi, Stakbita, come back in 2 weeks type of thing. Okay, so in 2 weeks I showed up. After 2 weeks. And that's in November.
Yeah.
So I started going there every 2 weeks from November to February. Consistently. Until Latu Jonga came out and said, okay, we are writing going to look bad. I think I can write. What's my notebook, my pen? Go in there. It's so big. I had never seen a newsroom before.
Okay.
And then they gave me a notebook. A national court. A story. If I get a story, I'm hired. I sat there at the national court for the whole day, taking notes. Taking notes of what had happened, who has beaten who, you know, those disputes. And I came back and I wrote a very nice piece. Very nice piece. Assisted by Mbongeni Assisted by Mbongeni who showed me how the keyboard was, how to start your story. Okay, tell me what happened. And I told him. And then he wrote the introduction. I was like, oh, okay, that's nice. And then, then he said, okay, now go and fit in what you think happened in your ways. This is the structure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then I put it in, and then it was published in 2 days.
Ooh.
I was like, wow.
I say this because, to be published, see your name in the I remember it very well the first time I saw it.
We kept that paper with my mother. We kept it for years. The first story in the paper.
It's funny because you say you started in the news section. We know you entertainment. How long did you stay in the news before?
Just a month, eh?
Oh.
In the second month, I'm a bright child, like I said. I'm very interested in things, so I look around. So I started looking at National Court. That's my beat. I cover the National Court. I cover community stories. So nagne mihlangano, eskom, efanden, bayangthuma, which is fine. Then I start looking around. How there is no entertainment pages or stories here. So I start listening to the radio and I write and I ask to put the story in the end.
Wait. We understand something. I think there's no entertainment stories in the newspaper or section in the newspaper.
At the time, and this is my disclaimer, at the time, there is no local entertainment. Entertainment is your foreign news. Oh. Yes. So I start saying to the people at the times, no, it's wrong. Local. So I'd like to start writing. And they say, but you are kubega la, if you can.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was writing in the afternoons, looking for what was not in the paper. Oh. So I started writing on radio and TV. Until 3 months later, they say, you know what, you're starting a good thing here. So move to entertainment. Focus on entertainment.
So basically you initiated
I initiated entertainment, local entertainment. And my mission, even the day that I moved to become a newspaper editor, I always had a dream I'm going to set up a entertainment section that is so big it has a pullout. That was my ambition. Yeah, that was my ambition.
Jesus Christ.
Now ubuka about style, ubuka about gwala, ubuka how many pages the entertainment sections was getting. That was me one by one saying, this is the goal. I'm pushing sengla. And consequently, I wanted a pullout. I always modeled the newspaper against the Star Tonight. And I could say, if the Star Tonight is a pullout every day, Why can't we do it? So that was how I worked.
So basically, you know what? I'm thinking now, even though you don't, I don't know, you'll tell me if I'm pushing it. Because if you started the entertainment pages, it meant to a large extent you gave life to the whole entertainment subculture in the entire country. Because
that's how Bingo's Jive becomes such a thing, because I was so critical of things that were happening and not happening because of my involvement in entertainment, in seeing things, in demanding that, no, we can't be here. We can't allow an artist from South Africa to come and play 4 songs and then we're okay.
Because Bingo's Jive was big, man. You know, my brother is young. He doesn't call you Bingo. He calls you Bingo's Jive.
Till this day, I get people asking me, why did you stop that column?
Hey, it's on Fridays.
Yeah, it was on Saturdays.
Saturdays, yeah.
It was on Saturdays. So I know I shouldn't say this because no, I used to think that I started entertainment in this country.
No.
And then I became demanding of setting the standards. And my colleagues that I was privileged to work with understood that we had a bigger ambition, to grow the field, to grow the way that people enjoyed themselves when they went out. So apart from, and I'll tell you other stories like entertainment, because that was my 10 years that I felt it was a coming of me. It was the way I saw journalism influencing how things were to happen, even if it's entertainment space.
I'll say this because, and I'm speaking as an outsider here, when you transitioned from being entertained, you were so immense with entertainment and the identity of the whole entertainment culture and industry in the country with you that we never thought you will ever make it outside of entertainment.
And I was told in the face.
They did.
Yeah, in the newsroom.
Those were bold enough.
No, those were bold enough. Yeah. Even in meetings, people don't know what we go through to be where we are.
No, I know. They don't even know how much the biggest critics are the media and journalists themselves.
In fact, I enjoyed this period of my life at the times because the editors are very critical of you, extremely. So when you go to the meeting to review your paper, you've got to have something, but you've got to have a thick skin.
Yeah,
because they're going to tell you.
Because you know what, and I saw this because when I was at the Mail and Guardian, when people think when you write stories, all the time,
shame.
Someone you miss this end. You didn't interview that one.
What is this paragraph?
Yes,
why did you have to put it here?
So, and you take over from, people don't sometimes forget that before you went to the Sunday, you went to the Swaziland News. That transition must have been tough because there was Vusi Gininza was huge. How easy was it for you to move?
Never
the
easy.
First time?
Never easy. I took over the Saturday paper following the death of Vusi Gininza.
And they moved Nimrod.
To Sunday. And because Vusi was in the Sunday, right? So some of my colleagues in the newsroom had earmarked that position.
I know.
I'm just there at the entertainment and then suddenly I'm becoming an editor. So there was a lot of things that were said. But one that stuck with me was one colleague of mine, God bless his soul, who said to me, "Ngiya lawyer. Mina ngisebenzisa umuthi to be given that position." And I had never even imagined I wanted that position in my life. I was happy at entertainment, targeting other things I could achieve, and I was becoming an authority at entertainment. So that was nice for me. But to be told by a colleague, he didn't tell me directly, but it was just the things they were saying.
Corridor talk.
And then, of course, there was the bet. I will never make it past 3 months. Paul was making a mistake.
So wait, Paul was the one who looked at you and thought you must go there?
Let me tell you for your viewers, this is how it happened. My office at entertainment was next to Paul Loeffler's office.
Yes,
because I was entertainment. Historically, entertainment always dealt directly with the publisher.
Okay.
Even from the time I started, I dealt directly with Paul's father, Douglas. And this is why we had a very good relationship. Because I would cover rotaries, I would cover dinners. And back then it was dominant white community that we were covering. So he was demanding in terms of how the story must be ngamhlazi type of thing. So my office was just next to him. So he used to knock on the window and beckon for me to come in.
Yeah.
So this one day he calls me and he says, so if you were to be moved to Saturday, what are the 3 things you would change? And I was like, oh, that's easy.
Douglas or Paul?
No, Paul. Douglas is now in Namibia.
Okay.
And so, that's easy. So I tell him what was wrong with the Saturday paper. I tell him what I could introduce. I tell him why I could do the job. He says, okay. And how about your sources? Because you are mostly entertainment, you don't know politics. And then I said, this is where you can make a mistake. Me as entertainment, I have access to these people in politics, but from a lighter.
Yeah.
So I relate to them, they relate to me, they know me. And I think that half the time I go out, I meet these people.
Yeah.
So I gave him 3 examples of people that I speak to that they didn't know I speak to.
Yeah.
I will not tell you.
Can't reveal your sources.
Can't reveal my sources, yeah. So then he says, okay, give me 15 minutes, I'll call you back. And then I walk back to my desk. He calls me in after 30 minutes, he says, move your things to Saturday. And now Saturday edit. I was like, are you serious? What's he? Yep. So he called his father and his father said, put him in. And I moved into a Thursday. To do a Saturday paper on a Thursday is already late.
I know.
Yeah. So, and that time I didn't have a reporter, and the shock in the newsroom was immense that some people thought, no, they went to Paul to object, to say, no, you're making a mistake. He's not ready. He must go into the news desk first. Politics. So by Friday, I only had one reporter, Sihle Mavuso. I'll forever remember that guy.
Yeah.
He came to me, dedicated his off day that Friday and said, Sibali, I'll help you. I'll come in tomorrow. Ngoba bebasebabatshelile ukuthi Mbongeni msite lawyer. Lama reporters, lama aka news. Mbongeni msite lawyer. So he came in, mina banginiketa 2 guys that were new. So he came in and said, no, let's do this.
You were meant to
But
fail,
God being God, first story was the biggest story of that year. First story I published.
Which one is that?
It was the November 28th statement.
Yeah. You know what? Actually.
So I am that lucky, eh?
No, you were lucky because, with all due respect to the editors of the time, I remember that when you were then moved into Swaziland on the Sunday, there was a feeling that the Sunday was not performing very well.
Yeah. So this was after 3 months I had started at Saturday.
So the promotion was that quick.
But after 3 months, on Saturday, we had outsold the actual sales on Saturday. So the paper was moving. And meanwhile, the Sunday was going backwards. So then that morning of our editorial meeting, it was fireworks. And the publisher then said, no, Nimrod, out. Bingo, you and your team move to Sunday. Just like that. I didn't have to discuss, you know what, I think No. It was, and I remember very well, it was based on a story that the Sunday had published that the publisher was not happy with. And based on the performance of the Saturday paper, we were growing and we looked like we were onto something, me, Charles, and Tuduz Makakula. And that was a very strong team. So then Lofla said, no, I'm making changes. Baba batsela balabanye bo editor la, but no, Paul, no, move. So I remember when I came back to the Sunday office, Saturday office, and I called the guys in. I said, guys, something big has happened. I don't even know where to start. But I see in Sunday.
And I know that the Sunday, our readers may not know or listen.
Yeah, but the Sunday was big.
Sunday is a big deal.
It was a big deal
for the week.
Yeah.
It's the
No, it was a big deal.
Even by
I remember, Mangoba, it was only after 2 months that I actually sat down to reflect on how big a jump I had taken. And it was also because I had mishandled a story then. And the knives were out for me to say, well, I'm not ready for this jump. This paper is not the Saturday paper. So well, it was too early, premature for my team to understand what is going on in politics. But I used that as don't go and repeat this mistake again.
You know what, Bingo? There's one thing, and sometimes I'm hated for this because people they think the one thing that I think the times, and I don't know if it was deliberate on your side, was how you were able to assemble your team from time to time. I look at the Sunday teams; it feels like a Ferguson. How you were
Tan Club.
I forget. Feels like a club. How are you selecting your team to build the Sunday? Because you didn't have your Makakula, the late, the big, the Muziendes, the head So you built a team afresh, and most of it really unknown journalists. How did you select the team?
I think Sunday? And I thank you for raising this point, because I am where I am because of how I build teams. How I work with individuals and how I see each person, you included. You will remember, I don't know if you still remember, but when I recruited you, Observe, people were reluctant. And you were moved to my team as a Bayagu reject. Yes. Go there. And what did I say to you? You know what? It's fine. We're going to work.
And I was young.
You were young, yes. Hey, you were young and inexperienced and stubborn. Thank you. And believed strongly in your story. But over time, you recognized we fit into a team. And I tell you, Charles Matsebula was at the Observer at the time. And remember, I said, Bengitema reporters. And the reporters that got news that time were told, don't go and work for him. If you go there, I won't say people's names. If you go there, you're out. So then that meant they had to start looking for new people to give to me. From an entertainment background, I need the ones who are strong to understand what needs to be done. So you can't give me a new team.
Exactly.
But in hindsight, that was a good thing. Because if you take somebody who's experienced, then there's that problem. So with these guys, I was able to say, listen, guys, we don't know anything, but we're going to work. And we're going to work this way.
And everyone expects us
to
lose.
Everybody, exactly. And so we came from that mentality. So we will prove Liverpool, yes. So we will prove them wrong. And I remember we hired him to do Makakula, who was new. Charles came from the Times Observer. He was new. Makosi joined. So this was how I was able to connect with the team. I accepted that I don't know what I'm doing. I am new in this game, but I know how a story can be shaped. So let's do this together. And I was blessed because these guys didn't question my idea of a story. No. Me, I see I can write a story on this car parked in front of me quickly, and you can make an interesting read. So we built a strong team based on that. And that's why over the years, even Nangfigaga Observer, one of the biggest things I had to do was to build a team for the Sunday. And I was privileged to find Welcome Jobless, and he came in and we changed, and you remember we took out Maramo debate. Took him out, literally, from the dungeon. So, but that's what journalism can do. Journalism can serve a purpose when it's used in the right way.
I'm now tempted to go, but I don't want to go there for now. But you see, one of the things, do you remember the big stories of people, and with all due respect to the current time Sunday, I've not, in a long time, I've not found a team that can produce the kind of stories the Times did. Do you remember the stories? Okay, rather, let me put it this. What's the highlight of the big stories? I'll tell you mine. Even before I came. I remember the big story of the continent. Was the child that was raped at the bus. That was broken by the Times. Joseph Zulu. Under your watch.
Under my watch. And that was my source, by the way.
I remember stories that talk about Kosigat, the most broken by the Sunday. There are many of these big stories, man, that I look back and I say, when last did you have a story that becomes the dominant thing?
And it stays in people's minds for years. That's why
the Charles Matebula story, 20,000. I can think of so many stories.
I was going to mention that story because as an editor, that is the pinnacle of your work.
Yeah.
That you will write a story to the extent that a person is going to try to bribe you. And we didn't just deal with that privately. We published it. No paper in this country has ever published a story. Let's see, bribe and naimali. No paper.
But also, there was a lot of saying, so that killed everything.
Yeah, so,
Because,
and I remember when Charles told me, Charles, please make sure that you don't take the money. Please. But from now onwards, let's do the story of the bribe. Because we couldn't write the other story of him having done this other thing. Eh? So what he was doing, though, was giving us a story that links him to what he was being accused of.
Yes.
So we then worked with that story of the bribe until the money was taken out of the bank. And Charles went to the bank by Koki Mali, by Faga envelope, wabuya nayo, say shoot.
In fact, I also remember the 50 million story of...
Yeah.
Yeah, like I'm just saying the big stories of the...
You know, I think that there's a bit of luck in the work that I do.
We are low. As they say.
As they said.
Yeah.
There's a bit of luck, but also I will go back to the point I made earlier about how your journalists need to buy into your thinking for the work to work. You need to say to them, okay, I have this person, Uzi. Angabuyilo journalist, that's it's not a story for me. So many of the stories we broke was because we could actually, you remember your time, we actually sat down and discussed and looked at how the stories can be handled and looked at who needs to be spoken to and looked at evidence. I don't know if that still happens back in the times because I don't want to talk about the observers. But hugely, it was also about people. Remember, I said to you, people know me from an entertainment background. So they can tell me things. So I hear things. It's a question of now, how do we do the story? But I know this has happened. Yeah. So 50 million, I remember very well. I want to give you a story that to me still stands out. Charles Matsebula once worked on a story of a kumbi stolen in this country. And he went and investigated it straight into Maputo and found it and took pictures and came back with the story.
Jeez.
That's proper journalism.
Yeah.
And that's tenacity on his part because he was not working on anything else but this story.
Hey, but also you supported Charles. I remember, I was in the newsroom, I remember how disrespected he was.
Yeah.
You really stood by him, even when the chips are
down. I think that's how I work with journalists. I stood by you. Okay, fine. Let's not go there. Look, I don't do this job alone. I work with people. I believe in team and in team ethic and in teamwork. Now, this is where I want you, because this is my platform to speak my speak. I'm a footballer.
Okay.
And my training as a goalkeeper, I'm the last line of defense.
So you can see the whole game.
I can see the whole game.
Oh, yeah.
My job was always to rearrange defenses, was always to tell, I know how we're going to play. I know how we must shape when we are in danger. So I coordinate things.
Yeah.
And I take that type of leadership into what I do. I must work with the team. I know the strengths. I know his strengths. I know how we can succeed.
Yeah.
So that has helped me to manage. That has helped me to actually also just... because I'm cautious. I'm a goalkeeper. I'm a last line of defense. I must make sure that the story is what it should be. So I try to do my job. Like, I don't take risks. You don't find a goalkeeper that takes risks. There's one or two. Fabian Barthez, maybe he played for some other team. Don't know the team. But there's fewer goalkeepers who make their name because they are eccentric. But many goalkeepers make their name because they know when to go out, when to stay.
Yeah.
And that's how I manage the teams. That's how I build the teams. Because I always believe that if a reporter does the right thing, it's for the benefit of all of us who work with him.
Yeah. You say you don't take risks. One of the things that has stuck with me that you used to say was that it's not about what you know, it's what you can prove. It stuck with me all the time that if I was to die and become an editor somewhere, I'll say, my editor once said, we know this may have happened, but can you prove it?
Can you prove it?
So when people forget the dynamics of how difficult they complain, and many of us, we are very unhappy with the quality of journalism, but a lot of bottlenecks. The court system is not now to the journalist. Advertisers threatening to pull out, the political environment and all of that. So tell me, what are the things that we are easy to question and critique and all of that, but aside what the difficulties of being in the newsroom and publishing and facing threats of lawsuits and all of that?
I think mainly right now the threats that we deal with as in media is that there's less and less people who trust in the media to do the right thing, to speak out, to say. I remember, and I didn't tell you this purposely, I remember in the first week of me being editor, someone called me on the Friday and said, "Oh, I hear you've been made editor. So what's the headlines for tomorrow?" And I said, "Ngos, kude bayangisabotaja la so ngisaid a story." And then he said, "I will look at the top of my drawer and see what I can give you." Because that person believed in the power of a newspaper, that if this comes out, the public will benefit. Now, people are less reluctant to engage with the journalists. They don't want to. You see, you remember this is the second part of our job. We write better when we are well informed. If you don't tell me what happened, if you don't give me the context, if you don't give me the background to the story, I will write just what is there. But that's not what the public wants.
Yes.
The public must be made to understand how you came to this conclusion. So that's the main challenge we have right now. But also, I think that right now, journalists are the proper, passionate, hardworking journalists. They're phasing out. I'm not going to say journalism is dying. I read the papers to find stories that obviously are online. And journalists aren't saying, this is my story. I know more about this story, so I'm going to reveal more. I'm going to work on more. So the caliber of the journalists that went to Maputo to identify or to follow the paper trail, to saying this is where the story is. I can't write a story of a Kumbi that has been stolen. I'm going to write a story of a Kumbi that was stolen and I found it. Because that gives you extreme joy, satisfaction. Then sengule environment, let's see, journalists are just there, because they are doing someone's bidding.
Okay.
Yeah, it's hard. So you can imagine in narrative, yebantu nge-observer. But the observer, in fact, I was talking to someone, I like to make examples. I was talking to someone who asked me, manje sifuna ukudila ne-independent newspaper, so are you guys independent or what? Think about it. Oh, what do you mean are we independent? Yeah, but you guys are the state paper. Okay, so is the Times a state paper also? And I said, what do you mean? I said, yeah, but the stories we publish are the same stories the Times publishes. Yes. So what does it mean? Now, in my life as a journalist, I have always known there's a stark difference between independence and pro-state, right? That means the story must be told in a certain way. That means you pursue different stories. But people never look at that. If you actually contextualize that, you will realize that the guys at the Observer are really pushing, We don't get that.
Especially given the environment inside.
The environment, yes. We don't get that. We just get people dismissing because we're the Observer for the sake of dismissing the Observer. But the environment is no longer that says, here's a journalist. Take him for what he's worth and give him the story. Challenge him on what he has published. Because that's where the beauty of the job is when the public reacts to your story. Is when the public says, no, but you are saying this, prove it to me. That's where we are failing.
But isn't it that you're not paying them properly? That's why you're losing the good quality journalists.
I started working at the Times when there was a story where journalists don't get paid. And I saw it. The journalism of that time, the Vusi Kininzas, the Peggy Makobos, all those guys didn't get into journalism because it was money. They got into it because they were serving. And they did stories out of they enjoyed what they were doing. It was never, in fact, I don't even recall Bovusi Bahambela Gogutiang, for what I'm doing, pay me so much.
But it's not that the economy now demands that.
No. But relatively to the economy then, look at the scales.
Okay, yeah.
Look at what they were getting. And you remember James Dlamini?
I remember.
James Dlamini worked for years in journalism. Years as a Times editor, journalist, columnist. What was he getting? That guy was the authority in journalism, but he didn't care what he was getting.
But also the other thing that I didn't think we give much attention to is Lagutia walking on a minefield as journalists. You say one thing wrong, you are sued.
You're sued. That's fine, but let me conclude.
Also, are the courses? Sorry, just where you combine them.
Yeah.
Do you think the courts are also fair in terms of how liberal they interpret the law with regards to the media?
A whole day, but let me start. Let me start with this one. I just want to say, I don't advocate that journalists shouldn't be paid. No.
Okay.
You will recall when we were at the Times, we actually changed the structure of
and people
yes, and then we took it up, and thankfully Loeffler agreed. So I understand we make a living out of this, but I don't think that it goes before the job. I think that you make your name, and I really advocate.
You earn your tithe.
Yes, and that's where the thing is now, that firstly, a journalist walks through the door and he says, you're not paying me. Yeah, one. And I think that's the difference. Even though now we can agree, with journalists are now qualified and they are more learned about the craft. But still, the quality is not the same as what it was before. But anyway, yeah. So there is a lot of factors, though, to put into the pot that affect us. And the courts is a big issue. I think over the past 15 years, the courts have been the biggest enemy of progressive journalism. Biggest. I was telling students at Kwaluseni that I still don't understand how this country did not stand up to fight that judgment, Yakelani Smilan. I don't know. But
because at one point the court, remember Albert Chabangu sued the Times.
Yes, I remember.
And got a lot of money. And the courts, progressive at the time, reversed and gave him almost nothing.
Zero,
But
because it was wrong.
500,000.
Yeah. So, but where is that 500,000 coming from?
Ish.
Who's going to pay for that? And here's where the challenge is. If you say the media must be fined that much amount of money for that type of story, and people need to go back and read that story. So what was the story? What did the judgment say to the story? The concluding part was journalists must know that they can't just say anything about a politician. But that actually is the reverse. That should be the challenge. You're a politician. You are there to be criticized for being a politician, and then your life is no longer private. Not private in the sense we want to go into your bedroom and see what you do. No.
But in your political and public life.
Your public life is subject for stories in the media. The public must know what you're going through. So you find the Times 500,000 for that. Now, that type of story means any other journalist or any other editor is now going to say, hey, wait. Remember,
you don't write stories.
You don't write stories.
Yeah.
And if I give you 5 stories that the media has been found guilty on and fined excessively, you will be amazed at how the media is still active.
I was shocked at the Alpheus Numalo one. I thought, I mean, that one, of all, that one has the biggest gripe. But I don't But also, you know what, Bingo?
But 300,000.
You even got 300,000.
He was given 300,000.
Still a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
Especially for that
300,000.
I have a gripe with.
So I'm saying if the media has to now budget 1 million a year for defamatory cases, libel, what does the powers that be in the media do? Make sure, okay, all right. And what does it mean to the person that we want to write about? Now you get people that are, we call them ambulance chasers, people that are just going to wake up and read the paper and say, you know, and they go to court. And frightening the hell out of the newspaper and the journalists to say, but that's letter of demand. So, the stories we publish are just going to be very weaker and weaker. Yeah.
But also, you know, the one thing, and I'm glad I can speak about this now. For a long time, you may have heard it, even if it's not overt, that Bingo Funzi, that authority on
Of course, I heard it.
You know, there's a lot of undermining you on the basis of education, and you seem to have shrugged it off over the years, and then all of a sudden, boom! You just went right at the top. Now you're at the university, right? You're teaching.
Yeah.
I would not have imagined that would have happened when I was still at the Times.
It's a fantastic story, Mbongeni, but I just want to say that
I read it
when I was younger, in fact, my family was very opposed to me starting work at the Times. And when I was admitted to Kwaluseni, you remember, Kwaluseni, we are applying on November, Manda uqedza angithi. And then besena phela February senithola incwadi letithini your nanzana has been accepted. Nga July uthola invitation for orientation. So when I got that invitation for orientation, I looked at sengiyahola, sengiyasebenza.
And it's also taking a lot of time.
Yeah, and so I decided not to go to Kwaluseni that time. And my family was so upset with me. One of my sisters, Dr. Njabu Lamini, she gave me a piece of her mind for choosing journalism over going to study law at Kwaluseni. And it always stuck with me that one day I would have to make it up to me. But the criticism of this guy started when I was doing Bingo's Jive. Because I was so hard-hitting, people had to find stones to throw at me. So what it did, though, was get it right, get it accurate. So no matter what they say, yeah. So don't make these mistakes. And then that's what I was grateful for. One, I don't drink. I don't, do these things where you're now compromised. So the only thing they could come at was, so that's how I progressed in life. Just shrugging this thing off because I knew the basics were, what is the story here? Is it true? Did you do the right thing? Did you follow your principles in terms of a newspaper, in terms of the policies? And if you did, well, they are publishing it, They are publishing all the... So it means that I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah.
So, however, it is there that over time, I just thought, it's not like standard 5 or I can't get to college. I can do it if I want. It's just, I didn't give it time. I suppose at the time. But one time I just woke up and I thought, it's time. And I applied. And it's interesting because the idea came to me when I was at the Rhodes University one time for the Highway Africa Conference. So I went into the media journalism class, building. And I think I must. Okay, here's my story. What do I do if I want to study? Yeah. And I said, okay. My application letter, apply, and then we will see what happens depending on number of students. And I said, okay, that's fine. So I came back home, applied, got accepted, and then I was like, now that means I must stop work.
Oh, you have a family now.
I have a family now. So I said, Rhodes is far. And 1 year, So, because I had to do a bridging course. Then I decided, no, let me look elsewhere. And thankfully for me, the admin ESA Rhodes then referred me to vets. And then I went into the website. I found the thing and I applied and I was called in for an interview. So they have an interview for everybody that wants to, because now I was not just wanting the diploma, I was going into an honors level. but you have to come in with your experience, sit in for an entry exam. And I remember there was 30 of us that day when I went to vets. 30. They were taking 5.
You know what, Bingo?
Yeah.
You know I went to the same course?
Yeah.
There was a woman, what's the woman who was the admin there? I remember. I forgot her name.
Yeah.
So I went to the same thing, wrote that interview.
Yeah.
When I said I was from Swaziland, they said, do you know Bingo?
Yes.
I'm not lying. They
Yeah.
said that about you when I said I was from. I said, I know you from Swaziland.
2 things that came to mind when I went into vets. I'm going to do this for my people back home who must know that this journey can be traveled. The second one is that I'm going to lead because I know people are going to question everything about me.
Yeah.
So I was in class very interested, extremely, because I wanted to absorb so much. And I remember the first day I came out there, I called Peggy and I said, you know what, Peggy? I think I found the thing that was missing in my game.
Yeah.
But no man ngabuyela nyalo evets. Saying right. It's like say went again. I said no. Lele ngufunza nje in 30 minutes. 30 minutes just shaped everything and it made sense.
Yeah.
So it was a whole new world.
Yeah.
But thankfully with my experience it fitted nicely into what I was doing and where I had to develop myself.
Yeah.
You know, yeah.
And then you eventually went right up to masters. Was it because you really wanted to go to?
My supervisor actually begged me that I continue. So as soon as I finished the honors, and they said, no, don't take a gap.
Yeah.
Just because one, I had the potential for it. The second one was that they could recognize that also I was, because there was now interest from Eswatini in their own programs.
Oh, yeah.
So my lecturer at the time was Anton Haber. And he was a fascinating guy. So he said, look, do apply. You stand a chance, a very good chance here. So I applied and got accepted. I was like, and I didn't know what I was getting into now. Yeah. Masters was a whole new and it was difficult. The first 3 months were hard.
Yeah.
Really hard.
But also, you know what? Now for the part-time is also much more difficult to work, family, traveling. How did you make it?
Firstly, I was not just part-time, once in a while. I was part-time, but actually full-time, which meant I had to sit in for class. So that meant I had to drive to class twice a week. And the cost, it's funny, there was a time when I thought, why am I doing this? So I had to be at vets every Monday and Tuesday for class. The other classes I could do. Some of them were put into block release, fine. But I had to be there for these 2 main courses. And get there also having done, so every week you had an assignment to finish. And you don't go into class, especially in the master's class. I had Coupe, who was a very strict guy. You don't come into his class without, he called it a visa. If you're coming into my class, you've finished the book, you've read it, you've analyzed it.
Jeez.
Then you're coming in. If you're not, twice he sent me to the library. Jeez. I don't care, Mswazi, go to the library. So, but what was harder was the 3 hours drive, because that takes a lot. Exhaustion. And then the class is in the afternoon, so that means it's hot, that means concentration. But then coming back and I'm working full time. There's no excuses. I can't make excuses.
But also when you say you're making full time, people don't understand that full time in journalism is not like working from 8 to 5.
No.
Sometimes you break off at 9 because the story came at 8.
Yeah. And I'm a managing editor also. There's reports to do. There's reports to do. There's things to follow up. Yeah. It was the hardest. I learned a lot about me during that period.
Yeah.
I'm a decent young man. I am very disciplined also because I could have given up.
Yeah.
Especially, and this is the first time I'm talking about it, Anton Haber leaves vets to go and be...
The NGO he's heading now.
No, he went to ETV, E-News, yeah. And he was my supervisor for my thesis. And he leaves at the beginning of the year, around January, February. I had to start afresh.
Huh.
Yeah, that was the hardest thing. You know, there's a time when I was driving back Epsugu from class, and I just thought, this is not me. I don't have anything to prove. And I almost crashed into a truck because I had so many emotions about to start and defend my topic. To go back into another supervisor. And obviously I can't meet the time. I had to finish by end of April, end of March. So, yeah.
Yeah, no.
It didn't come easy.
It molded you.
It did.
Molded
I think it did. So sometimes I look back and I say, it was a journey worth traveling.
What is the credit to your employer for allowing you this? Let's be honest.
I wasn't allowed. I mean, if I was allowed, I would have taken weeks off. I would have. I don't think I was allowed.
You're working in between.
I was working in between. I was submitting everything that needed to be submitted. I was at the office. Remember that time I was also editing the Sunday. Sure. So that meant on Saturdays, I'm actually doing
the final paper.
Yes. On Sundays, I go into the office to write assignments, to read. And on Monday morning, I'm going to class. On Tuesday, I'm in class. I'm driving back. On Wednesday, I'm sitting at management meeting. And
Jesus.
So I wasn't allowed. I wasn't allowed. I pushed myself. I pushed it because I didn't want excuses. I didn't want, there was a sense also that when I'll tell you this other story, I paid for myself. And when I applied for a scholarship, bathi baphathi bami manje bantu bayahlupha bathi bangafika la kaTibiyo bese sebafuna yabo. So there was a sense that no wena sisangakuva kahle ukuthi you are coming or going so ufuna kuya esikolweni very quick no. So I had to find money to pay for myself,
which comes back to this thing I'm sure you've always had. People don't know you much, but they always speak from outside. And I always say, Bingo is a very nice person. So you'll always speak to her, no matter what, always be nice. But when you are nice to people, and they you are friends to politicians, to soccer people, entertainment, powers that be, then Bingo is corrupt. Bingo has relationships with some high-profile people. Bingo couldn't have done all of this. Someone was paying for him. Victor Kamedze had him on his pocket. Just wrap up all of those things.
Where do I start? Let me tell you one thing, though. People have said a lot about me, and none of it is true. People think they know me because my persona is outgoing. I laugh a lot. I don't care much. And then they get the sense they can say anything. So I was brought up to think that, and this is my understanding of journalism also, why do you and I do this job? Because you can only say something when you verified it. And I always think that people who want to say I'm in someone's pocket have gone to the person and they found the pocket and they found me in it, So there were cases where I felt like this is unfair to me. This is unfair for what I go through. So I want to give you the exclusive of two things in my life that have happened that have shaped me to be where I am. One is that I remember when I was wanting a car, because M17 at times they were saying they were no longer going to give me the company car. So I had to buy a car.
And you spent a lot of time without a car, by the way.
Yeah, I was just being picked up and dropped off by the company until one day one editor went and complained to management that he uses his car for his family and it's not fair. So Loeffler said, I can't give you the car anymore. So I said, fine. So now I needed to buy a car. And I went to the Standard Bank, took a personal loan, went to Tokyo Cars, bought a car. Cash. And I wrote the check. I don't know if you were still there. I wrote the check of 45,000 in Malangeni, and I put it there on the notice board Sunday, because I knew, number one, that people were going to say, we know who bought this car. Okay. Number two, I knew also that me suddenly having a car means that something.
But also, Bingo, you were suspicious. You were well organized. Family. We've got a car.
I've got a car.
We've got a house now.
But you don't know now. I have a loan from the bank that I'm paying.
Exactly.
But this sense of me why I put the check there. Someone asked me from the office, why are you putting it there? It's a reminder to myself that I must do things for myself and how it feels to do something for yourself. So I have always tried from then onwards to say, people can say whatever, but I know the truth. There's the truth on the wall. So I have always, and I want to give you 3 things that have happened that people don't know. They put me in a basket and I'm okay with it. But deep down, there are other people that they don't look at the same way that they look at me. Okay, Mbongeni. One time, no, maybe I'm so good, edit. But
you know, say without saying the name. You didn't say
no, but I'm going to be talking about an establishment. But I had a conversation one time.
You've had a lot, man. It's
I've
time
had
you
a lot.
hear the side of the story. How?
I had a conversation with Victor Kameta one time.
Okay.
And I was upset with him because he had walked into the newsroom, spoken to someone, and walked out. And I knew it was about a story. Okay, so I said to him, why are you going to that guy and not coming back to me and telling me what you were talking about? And you know what he said? And God bless his soul, that man. Puti, wena uhlukile nalabantu laba. Your life is in order. I don't want to compromise you. Already bayakhuluma nje. So I don't need to be coming to you and making it look like I'm compromising you.
Oh, yeah.
Your life. Yes. And I looked at him, for the first time, I hadn't thought of it that way. That's how he sees me. He sees a guy that can organize his nonsense. And it's fine. But he knows the others. All right? So I said to him, but we are fanana. If you go to that editor and speak with him, eventually then he says, but I don't pay you. So it took a while, Mangoba. Some things hurt. Some things you sit down and say, I could just stand on the top of the mountain and say, listen, A, B, C, D. But get this from me today. There is nothing more satisfying than knowing that everything I have, I've fought for, I've worked for, I've done for myself. So I bought a car. Never mind, little Dubai, let's Tokyo cars. I bought a Jeep. And soon got to Victor didn't even know. And then he says to me, how? So take him out. Manje must say it's again. That's mean, well, anyone who will want to find out, my bank is there, the dealership is there, my employer is there. So I've done things the way that I think that internally. I mean, I should not always look at, hey, but what's in band? I've never been that person. That's how I wrote Bingo's Jive. I didn't care what people do. If people find my article wrong, fine. But if people find me full of nonsense, well, I can't help you. If people find me and say, well, Papa, oh, well, this is it. So I've never actually considered that when I buy a house, what am I doing? I must not buy a house because people are going to say, so, but if people want to actually investigate me, they'll go to building society and find out and look at the consistency in my payments and look at how I struggle like everybody else to make payments and look at shame, interest, and then they will realize I'm a person that has always wanted to do the right thing.
But is it not because maybe you don't indulge in one of those things that like
alcohol.
All of
I'm not wayward, but also, and this is the main thing, people take it for granted, because when I don't have friends, and I mean that. I mean, I don't have friends. I don't live here and say, "Ish, ngisaya kabani? Sihlale kuphelele iviki or ilanga lonke bese ngikhathi sebangishayele ekhaya. Oh, sesikhathe kuyele ekhaya." I leave the office, I go home. I leave home, I go to the office. So that limits the conversations I can have with other people that can probably come back to me. And I'm grateful for my wife because of that, because she's my friend. So when people say I read some incredibly well-crafted story about me, incredibly well crafted.
There's one that I wrote, Bingo.
No, not that one. The one that I was at a swimming pool. I read that thing. I was like, oh my God, I can't even swim. So how can I go into a swimming pool? No. I'm saying it because at the end of the day, anyone who knows me will have read that well.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
In fact, I was accused for defending you there. I said, you know what, one of the bloggers, alleged journalist, I wrote and I said, why is Bingo being attacked every day? If he has sinned, what sin has it done different to all the other journalists or editors?
Yeah.
And I said, most of these things we've heard them, and since you have friends with many people. So some of these things
I speak to a lot of people. But also, my life, I think,
because
shame, God bless her soul.
I always think about it. I say,
so,
how does she take it?
As I say, Mangoba, one, because she's my friend, she knows everything. All right. So, she knows I'm here. Right. And when I finish here, I'm going to give you a call. I'm going to the office. So that helps you. That helps you to be able to navigate certain things. But we've grown up together. She's seen me grow from where she found me and understands my passion, understands my humanity, understands how I relate to other people. So she understands also that as a human being, I have critics. And she was criticized just dating me. She was criticized. So she stepped into this minefield of, oh my God, this is what they say about the guy. And then every time they were saying things, she was like, okay, but I don't know this. Okay, but so then she realized early in her life, okay, people will say what they want to say about him, but it's not actually who he is. Yeah,
because people forget that you took a whole first presence of
Miss Swaziland. Yeah. I don't know if I was good.
But I'm curious because, you've had, and it's now almost seamlessly taking us to the whole recent controversy of stories of swimming pools. And I thought it was going to compromise your work, especially as it related to authorities. Yeah. How did you navigate that very toxic environment, Lapokona, now with social media? Anyone can say anything. And you just kept your silence.
So, Mangoba, like the last part that you say, in social media, anyone can say just about anything. And secondly, social media, maybe it's my understanding also of how social media can be manipulated. Social media has a lot of people who are ghosting. They're not there. So some things are going to be said, but I go about social media, but still figure up. I think the most part, Mbongeni, is that I'm grateful for a lot of people that have stood by me, that know me, that can see fact from fiction. That's one. I really am grateful. But the main one is that, honestly, if I'm innocent, Mangoba, truth will come out eventually. So if people say things about me and say I am corrupt, okay, that's fine. That's their view of me. But the bigger picture is, if I'm corrupt, it will catch up with me one day. So I was telling a CEO last week, we're talking about business, ne? And I'm helping him understand a certain story in the paper. So I say to him, you know what? I've worked this is now more than 30 years in the field. I have never had a person come up to me and say, Bingo kalemanga ngamla, or Bingo ungtrikile la words. So I don't deal with the public in a manga way. I deal with them transparently and as best as I can, honestly. So if I was that person, you
wouldn't last this long.
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't. I really think that's the main thing that drives me. You've worked this hard. You've worked this hard. Okay? So if, for instance, I am corrupt in the sense that I send journalists to go take bribes and then I'm sure one journalist one day will write a book and say, that guy, hey, So that's fine. It will come out. But I should also be smart enough to see things as they happen, to know why they happen, to see that I cannot expect a person at the bus rank of Mbabane or Manzini to actually know me well. They're free to say what they want. But I can't go to the person at the bus rank and say, no, listen, it's not true. So in my life, I only want to say, one day when Mangoba, I say something about you, you will pick up the phone and say, why have you said this about me? And I'll say, oh, sorry, I think this is what I said. And then we will move on. So a lot of the things that people think they know, it's because they are being shared and shared and shared, and people think that is it because it's a lie told many, many, many times. It then walks into a stature of truth. I don't know.
Yeah.
All I know is, Mbongeni, I have been privileged in my life to work with people that understand me. I am privileged to work with people that share the same passion as me. And I thank God that my perspective and outlook leads me to certain people to get to know and get to work with. And I hope that I leave a good impression on them. And the last part is people forget one thing about me. I'm a professional. So I want to protect that part, right? So if you're going to say, that guy will call the professional aspect, you're going to make that mistake of painting me with that brush. I'm a professional. I want to be able to say, when I write something, I can stand for it. I want to be able to say, when I lead my newsroom, it is the best way that I could at that particular time, because that's what drives me as a professional. I'm not just a one-time skelem wanting a way out of life. I think for something no, I've worked this far because I understand what the job is. And as a professional, that's what I'm going to try and do.
Off air, you said something about one editor who gave you a hard time because something was said in a meeting internal and it went out. Do you harbor some resentment, or do you pick a call and say, hey, Chief, when they...
But that's the most beautiful thing about me. I move on. I really do move on. I don't have time to stick with the negativity. I wouldn't be here today if the things that people have done behind my back. I remember when Sakalapo Facebook, we used to write these things. I used to post it. I have 1,000 daggers in my back. There's no longer space for another one, because people have betrayed me. People have said things behind my back. People say things as I speak to them as authority just to feed into the narrative yabo. And when I discover those things, sometimes I say, how man? And then I just, okay, that's his game, or that's how he is. I can't then elevate myself or drop myself to their level and say, I want to engage on this. It's my weakness in life. I don't think that I have ever spent time worrying about why is so and so like this. I wasn't brought up that way.
Their truth,
it's
your truth.
If you haven't come to me to say, sorry, Baba Mbingo, lapha kunginga le ndegile. Sorry.
Is that why, therefore, you've been silent of all the things that have happened?
I've been silent because, firstly, as a professional, you choose your platforms. No, not battles. You choose your platforms. Yeah. I'm a journalist, so in fact, I was having a conversation with a colleague on this. Mbongeni, I am a managing editor of a newspaper. I stand for accuracy and truth and integrity in the stories we publish. So I know that things that are in my newspaper are accurate. I know that in order for me to get to say something, it's because someone has been spoken to and has responded, and then I form an opinion, right? So I read only those platforms that I understand operate that way.
Oh,
so
ouch.
Paul Loeffler used to demand that we read The Economist. And yes, and we got The Economist every week. And you take The Economist and you read an opinion and you understand where the person comes from with this, and you follow it. So I will read things that are legitimate, that are official, that are above board, and then I will form an opinion. So if I appear on those platforms, I know two things. One, I've been spoken to, all right? Two, the person has done their work to come to me. So I will then look at, this is nice, or this is nicely said. The main one, though, Mbongeni, is that half of the time that people say something, they just build on the past. They just build on the bingo that is not qualified to be a journalist. Despite that, you can say, no, but hang on, Pela. No.
But also someone you dismissed was into a story in 1922.
That was the other part. No. In my line of work, I have written about people a lot of times. A lot of them don't like it. And a lot of them, I meet them, by the way. Labanye bayaqhamuka say, hey, wena wakwangibhala wena. Oh, okay. So, baneng labanye libe bahabarisha those things. This guy wanginyanyisa. And when they get a platform, they will speak. I don't have an enemy. I don't have a place I can make an enemy, because even when I write about you in the platform that I work for, it's not out of malice, out of kuthi ngiyagulaya.
It's part of the job.
It's part of the job. So whatever I have done, I have built it on. I found this a good thing to comment on. So I don't therefore think that in my head someone lengambhala katseni utawusheshe accept ukuthi buke sokwaba lapha lokho yabona. So naye nakathola opportunity. All right. So, but knowing where I go, what I do, and how people see me makes me then say, shame, I don't have time for that one. Yeah. No, shame.
But also on the lighter one, we were so invested in your threads. We felt had to. So what happened? Why did you cut your dreadlocks?
Two reasons. One was that me and my wife had always thought that when I get to a certain age, I'm going to cut them off.
Was that really
it was identity, and I struggled a bit. So I was supposed to remove my dreads at 40. I removed them at 42. So that's how hard it was. Yeah. Okay. But also, secondly, because it was an acceptance of growth on my part, a new phase of my life, a new chapter I wanted to be. And believe it or not, at that time when I took the decision, I thought I am going to make a difference in my life in terms of where I be. So the masters was one of it. And then I've toyed with following up now and doing a PhD, so that I completely move away from this old person that had dreadlocks, that was a journalist in a career where it doesn't pay, so vele nje uphila ngalama bribes, type of thing. But it was a good chapter, and what was interesting was now meeting people saying what you be the lama dreads who I had dealt with. So some of them said, wasebenda. These guys, they didn't say they didn't like my hairstyle then, but now they're saying these things. So it was interesting.
And then just in conclusion a bit, you are now at the university, you teach some of these kids. How easy or difficult it is to teach journalism in an era where we are 140 characters, we don't want to read, we want the shortest story as possible,
in fact, where young people are not invested in writing.
Oh, yes.
This is the main part. Journalism is about writing.
Yeah.
It's about turning the third paragraph into the main story. And if journalists can't do that, then you're not there yet.
Yeah.
So it's tough. It's tough for the university. It's tough for Limkokwing also, because kids are being driven to this field not because they have a passion for it. It's because they are looking for a cause to do. That's one. The second one is that, ngoba sengila, okay, but why must I? But I've said it. There's no meaning to journalism. Is this sentence correct? In all its facets, is it correct? Have you not stretched it?
Are you not being malicious? Are you being fair?
Are you being fair?
Yeah.
What gives you the right to? Which is where we then have that thing at times. It's not what you know.
That you can prove.
It's what you can prove. So if you're saying this, are you for sure going to say this because you know it or because you can prove it? So I'm really grateful to Gwadu Seni for giving me this opportunity to say, from your experience, and now that your qualification allows you to come and share with our kids. And it's beautiful to see some of them wanting to do it for the right reasons. But it's also a very big challenge, because young people these days, are easily distracted. They don't see, reading also means you must concentrate, you must follow the line. So young people now are reading like you are reading on Facebook. Quickly, you formed an opinion.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, but we must give back, and I take this responsibility as being part of me giving back.
Especially with a university like that.
Yeah. So it's a crowning moment, when I drive down to Kwaluseni. I remember the first few months I used to drive down to Kwaluseni. I couldn't believe it. Yeah. And I had jitters for the first time in my life. I was uncertain of where I was, but I got hold of it. I don't think I did too badly. I think in my head, I give a different dimension to what they look for. Because I have practical experience. And then
two last ones. In the fashion and entertainment part, you were almost an authority on issues of Miss Swaziland and all of that.
Yeah.
So I've been disappointed, Bingo, with Miss Swaziland. And you are no longer there as an authority to make those stinging criticism of Miss Swaziland. I don't even know who's Mr. Swaziland, by the way.
So you see now the beauty of proper criticism is that society understands where we are, right? And I used to be a very fierce critic of the organizers of Miss Swaziland, but they listened, and I think in 4 of them I participated. I was in charge. And the levels went up. So I tell a story of the beauty queens I have helped, in my era of a journalist. It's very painful to see where the thing is now. It's really painful. I think it's even painful the way that the arts and culture handles it. But you will remember, I wrote a lot about when they took this decision to take the license from Vine. I go, this is a bad decision. And I got criticized for it. I got criticized for supporting Viner's license. All right? But I remember at the time I did warn. It can't be in the hands of a state. It can't be. No other country does it that way. So here we are. There's no pageant director that actually treats this the way it should be. And therefore, our children are being taken for a ride. They're being taken to participate for no prizes, for no esteem, for no future. And this is what I used to support for young kids to join Miss Swaziland, is that as a person, it teaches you certain things. So it's not just being on stage, but it teaches you life, to be in the public domain, to understand. Yes, it's a life lesson to be in that thing. But now, for what?
Also, you represent the country, for goodness sake.
Okay, that's besides the point. I mean, if you are going to take this thing as a professional thing, you're going to build from it and say, I'm going to have a career here. And look at all of the guys that took part in Miss Swaziland before. They went on to become something, right? And those are the ones that went into it for the right reasons. I can see this being a platform in which I can elevate myself into something bigger, right? Not that this is an end to a means to an end. But what is painful is that young people no longer look beyond. I want to be a model, so I can do what with being a model? Where are the opportunities beyond that? Who are you looking at and profiling yourself around and saying, I want to be a model because I can get mileage, I can get profiled, and then I'm going to meet people, and then I'm going to meet business, and then I'm going to. But that's what's lost now with the pageants. The pageants themselves are in the hands of committees. I don't know how they come up, and now they are just a law unto themselves. You criticize them, there's blacklist the newspaper, we're not going to give you stories. As if Land for Yao. This is a national pageant. Now, if you don't want to be criticized, why take it? So,
we missed Bingo's Jive.
I was tempted because I remember when I stopped Bingo's Jive, there was calls for me to continue writing Bingo's Jive.
I remember. I think it continued for 1 to 2 times.
Yeah. And then, but the argument was, people now expect me to say the serious thing, in politics, what am I saying? So am I forever going to be the guy that writes Bingo's Jive, or can I navigate the political nuances of this country in terms of what do I think, what do I make of so and so? And it was even last year, I thought, let me bring it back. I'll just write a few paragraphs. But is that hanging on to the past?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
but make an adversary of it, don't you think?
Well, I don't know.
Just one column, and even
or
if
maybe or maybe once a month.
The time, then do just do an anniversary of 100.
We'll do a poll.
Oh yeah.
maybe the bridge will do a poll and say, okay, tell us if he should write this thing or not, and then we'll see from there.
There's one last important point, Bingo, I would like to know. You and Liverpool is like you and I don't know. What's your story with Liverpool and how far have you gone? No, but I remember when it took 2005, was it what? The Champions League.
Champions League 2005. Yeah.
2005.
It's 2005, yeah.
I remember how excited when you came into the office.
I didn't sleep.
Yeah.
2005.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much time I have, but yeah, this is very interesting. We watched that game with my wife. We were not, so we did everything together. Eh? Mm-hmm. So Bugel, Liangel, Alcod, Bayakora 1, 2, 3, she leaves. I can't. And I tell her, no, still win. We will come back. 3-0. Winner. So she goes into the bedroom. In the second half, we score the first goal. Then we scored the second goal. And then as soon as we scored the third goal, I banged on the door in that bedroom. I woke it up. There's no one else I can celebrate with. I don't watch my team in a pub. I watch it at home because of that. So she comes out and we celebrate. What happened? And and what's just I win again. So we watched the penalties together. And if I had a camera in there, it was so beautiful. Me and her just doing the, the she's kids woke up. Obviously, I mean, my kids also woke up. Tutu is Liverpool. Vuyo is Arsenal. But I taunt him. So Liverpool to me, as I said earlier, represents that part of me that is the escapism. That is a dreamland. That is I can't believe I even have the privilege to watch it. And it comes from two places. I was very young when they were here. But I recall in 85, as I said to you earlier, I used to visit my uncle in Mbabane. So there was a TV. And that's in the road to Wembley. And he was Everton. So there was an 85 finally Everton and Liverpool. And so we had to choose to supporter his team or the other team. So me and my cousin, we went with the other team. The others went with him, and we won. So it started from there, realizing that there is a team that I supported. Then I started to hear because they were here, and I couldn't go to watch them. Oh, okay. So I start now as an adult to realize, now Liverpool, of course, we knew of John Barnes and Ian Rush and all. So here's why I enjoy watching it. So I used to walk to Fritz Selby's place.
The greatest.
The greatest, yeah. And it's about a kilometer away from my house. So he had DSTV back then, very early, and I didn't. And I love Liverpool. So I would walk to his place, and yawubona games adlala ngabo 10 ebusuku. And umuntu omdzala alale la couch. Amele mina ngithi ngibukele ngive buhlungu.
But now ayifuna.
Ngiyafuna lokubukela. And then walk back about 12 to the house. So now I get to see it as and when. Isn't that beautiful?
Oh yeah.
Isn't I bought a watch from the Liverpool store.
But I want to find out how far have you gone in terms of financial goals. I know you always have the jersey. You had a framed something.
I still have.
Do you have rituals of Liverpool like
No.
Okay.
I surprised my wife, or shall I say, shock, and I bought a Liverpool ring. I must have a ring. I have a Liverpool ring, but yeah, I've gone as far as having the membership card. So I'm a member. I'm an officially registered Liverpool supporter.
So the bridge, when you want comments about Liverpool, we should ask you.
Yeah.
You are not just some fan from outside.
The dream now is to take me and my colleagues that support Liverpool in this country to Anfield one day for the soccer match. And there's a few that have already gone before us. I'm a young, responsible man, so it's quite costly. Yeah. But I'm saving towards it.
Yeah.
I would love, your viewers will not know this, but I started the supporters club of Liverpool in Eswatini, and I run. We have a group on WhatsApp.
Okay.
So we started just by sharing. I added a shadow in the group because I know he's a Liverpool person. I added Menzi Dlamini. Remember Menzi?
Where is Menzi?
He's in Joburg.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Gurulen.
Okay.
So and then we grew into a full, almost 500 people of Liverpool supporters in this country. 3 weeks ago, Pastor Apostle Jethro Malinzisa went to Anfield, and he's in our group. We have an apostle in that group.
Yeah.
And he brought me a mug. I mean, this is...
You did have a Liverpool mug. Even
I have mugs. I have mugs.
Yeah.
So every time I go into a shop to buy a Liverpool shirt, I call it a privilege because there's many people who want this and they can't have it. And there was a time being jazz and can't afford it, and now you wear it. So it's a big thing to me. It's like growing up as a child, and then you see your mother coming to see you in Outlalnai, and you see her once. Do you know what that feeling is?
I know.
That's how I feel. That's how I used to feel growing up when my mother used to come pick me up.
Last one. I know you've been. People don't believe this. You don't drink, right?
No.
And then also you've got two children, a boy and a girl. How have they been? Are they following your lives? Are they going to journalism, soccer? What's the story there?
My children have taken my passion, both of them in different ways.
Okay.
Vuyo went into law, and because remember, I had
been accepted in law.
So he's just completed, and he's serving his articles. He's serving his articles with a law firm that shall not be named. And he's doing quite well. Okay. And then the last born follows the father and supports Liverpool.
Okay.
Vuyo is Arsenal, yes.
Yeah.
And she went into journalism and broadcast. So this is the part of me that also I thank God for. My life is really beautiful. I don't take nothing for granted. I have 2 kids that I love so much that are success in their own right, but that I also believe that are a reason for me to say I can take all of the negativity in the world.
And look at that, and anything.
My life is okay. Yeah.
No, thank you so much, Mr. Mbingo. I really appreciate it. I wish you had 30. The queen even leave. The money leave. That's how interesting it is.
No. I thank you for giving me the platform.
Beautiful conversation.
I think that I also must mention, Mbongeni, that I appreciate you calling me out here. And I remember the first time we had this conversation, I wasn't sure I should come in here. And also, of course, I hear you saying you've defended me. Thank you very much for.
I can see Chair saying many things that are negative if I want to. Anyone will say about. But I mean things that I have just plain wrong. You don't even have to tell me.
You forgot this one part though, that there are people who still think that I didn't write that paper, that someone wrote me the thesis. Someone wrote it.
People think you write for the bridge, by the way.
Oh, even. Wow.
They say I'm part of the funders. So it's good for us because you get legitimacy.
I wouldn't have the time. But one friend of mine texted me during the unrest and said, I'm in a group that's discussing this paper, but it can't be you. You surely can't write like this. A whole group is discussing me. So, that paper, so I'm linked to it. So every time someone Googles that paper, I get a notification.
There's one question that I just remembered now. Bingo in progressive circles.
Yeah.
Bingo is reactionary. Bingo is all of this. And I always say this, and I know you don't know it. You don't notice it. When was the last time the Progressive had columns in the newspapers? When Vincent...
Don't say anymore.
Yeah.
No, I'll tell you. And sometimes I sit back and say, history will judge me. End of story.
No, sometimes when I say these things, it's because what can you say?
Actually, as you said, last week I was looking at the Times Sunday columnists. Ngumalo is still there from my time.
Alex.
He started writing. I asked him to write. And Jan Stole used to write for me. I asked him. Musa Tlope. I asked him. Mangoba Mabuza.
Mario Masugu.
Bongani
Masugu.
Yes, I was going to say Bongani because it was and he was an interesting character. But also, people don't understand that I'm open-minded. I like to have a conversation.
In fact, Bingo, sorry, I really need to say this, even though it's I'm interviewing you. But also, it was the first time ever that I've seen, at least in the media, that I've seen someone publish an article criticizing him. You know, there's a guy called Mbongeni who wrote an article criticizing you, and it was published in the Times Sunday.
Yeah, because I was brought up to think that I'm not the only sane person to say this in a criticize. If I keep it, I must take it, right? So, and Douglas Loeffler used to like that. You remember I was writing Bingo's Jive, and a lot of people were not happy with how I was saying things. So we opened views. I think even now, the Times has those feedback things there. I started those because I wanted to open up to say, we are okay with being criticized. Because if you tell me something that makes sense, I should listen.
But also there is an expectation that sometimes people want the Observer or you to do something that goes against the policy of the paper. You can't go. That's how I'm not saying you should. I don't expect you to write Observer and criticize the king. You know, and say, I mean, this is policy-wise.
And that barometer, problem. So you don't understand media then. And Paul will forgive me, but I give an example of Loeffler. Loeffler owns a newspaper. It's called The Times. Can Martin criticize Loeffler? No. So why do you want me to sit and in fact, flip the script? I criticize government. And I get into trouble for it. But I still believe that it's right to say, this is wrong, this is right. But other people think it's just basic. It's just normal.
Because I
should do more. And then you sit back and you say, okay, so I must.
Why is the same not asked of the other?
If you say the paper is owned by the state, why are you asking me to do this? Eh? Okay, and that's why I said to you earlier, Mangoba, people must look at it this way. If you're saying the Observer is a state-owned newspaper, evaluate the stories we publish. Look at the stories we publish against the independent newspaper. Maybe we're kicking above our weight in the way that people now take it for granted. Observer has a story about the Prime Minister. Oh, the Times has a story about the Prime Minister. So someone in this took us what totally different. Which reminds me, by the way, but you didn't ask me a question that I've always wanted to talk about, Mangoba. The media in this country is not united. The media cannot sit like this, you and I, and discuss issues of journalism and how we handle stories. And that is what has let the industry down. Media, unfortunately, has got into the space of rivalry. Times and Observer. Kanzi smart journalists. Journalists are professional. Lawyers, accountants, auditors, who else? Contractors, engineers. They don't go around saying, that building, I could have built it better. They look at
That's a very interesting
the field and then say, what did you do here? And they have a drink together. But journalists in this country want to sit down and say, my story is better than your story. No. Even to the point to say, don't talk to so-and-so because it's my story now. That is why standards have dropped. Because we don't see each other as a professional entity. Like lawyers
Such
go
you
to...
can close ranks
so you can close...
from a journalist point
If you have an interview, if you do this interview and it's okay, another journalist should be saying, wow, well done on the interview. How? Bingo velega mangoba. Kusha ma journalists. Now, this is one of two things that I want to advocate for in this country. That journalists must stop thinking, I thought we were going to talk about Welcome's regulatory submission also. Yeah. Journalists must not think that we must be opposing on opposing ends. We remain journalists. When people talk about journalism, I'm involved. They don't say observer journalists or Times journalists. But where there's a difference is that a journalist from the Times works for an independent newspaper. And therefore, that journalist must understand how he behaves insofar as handling a story is concerned, insofar as the story is shaped. But not to say when we go to a press conference, notebook, no, we can have a drink about what the press conference was like. Yeah. It's fine. The second part is, I know it will get me into trouble, but I'm speaking on behalf of the development of the media in this country. When was the last time media in this country, so maybe don't navigate the situation. I was telling the guys at Kwalusene that the problem with media in this country is that the owners of the media industry don't invest in the media. So, the Times is still the Times. But you don't get to see that, Lofla makes so much millions and is thrown in $1 million into the business so that the business can expand. How has the media expanded? Has it expanded? When I was doing my research, I was shocked. This field we are in really hasn't developed beyond 1996.
For real.
So how then do you expect journalists to grow? Because they are operating in the same environment. Swazi TV. Does Swazi TV have multiple studios now? No. But it's Swazi TV in 1978. Does Swazi TV produce? Can we produce our own
small documentaries as well?
Yes. No.
About water. You know what so you don't have to be doing something controversial as well.
I'm also not trying to be controversial, but I'm just trying to raise the point that there is a conversation we must have about how owners invest in media so that we grow, so that, this is a powerful profession. The country, if you look at the narrative of this country and how government now understands that we can't allow this narrative to go on, it needs the media to professionalize, it needs the media to be above, right? Yeah. So that means we need to then say, how does it happen? If you don't invest in it, it's not going to help you.
Yeah, that's true. No, thanks so much, Mr. Mbingo. It's been an incredible conversation, but I think we have to have more than one, even if they're no longer cameras, just to talk about the media. And especially on this one, I have to get your opinion on this one in 5 seconds. Are there journalists in social media or there are bloggers? And what's the difference? Everyone who has a page.
5 seconds is not enough.
Okay.
No. There's a huge difference between a journalist and a blogger. All right. First, in journalism, we're going to cut it short. A journalist has a responsibility for what he says. A journalist must verify. A journalist must make sure that the story is true. So we deal with truthfulness. Blogging is opinion, is views, is I can own this view because it's mine. So you don't have responsibility for what you're saying. There are journalists who can then go into blogging, but they are also going there because they want to put their views in the stories. So if you want to tell a difference between a journalist and a blogger, you will look at the story, the structure of the story. If a story has an opinion, that's not a story. That's a view. So if you're treating a story as a personalized view, you're blogging. If you're treating a story, you then have to stick to everything that says, is this true or is it because you know it? It's not a story if you cannot prove it. So in blogging, and this is what online journalism now has become, bloggers, because it's people that say, I know Kedlembane was there, but I don't really care about what happened when he was there, but I can place him there. So that's it. I'm writing the story. Kanzi journalists will have to find Kedlembane and say, Kedlembane, were you there? and why. That's the difference.
But also, to what extent can I just write that bingo hambe asuta everywhere? Bingo
so mainstream,
the responsibility of the profession.
In journalism, you can't accuse a person generally. In fact, even an allegation, you must try to substantiate that allegation. So you don't substantiate it by saying, but I called him and he didn't respond. That's not substantiating it. Substantiating is making sure that what you are going to write, you can prove. And yet bloggers can actually say it. It's okay. They don't have to own up to it. Remember, we have already spoken about how we are then taken to task for what we publish. Bloggers get away with it because they don't have to. In fact, let me leave you with this. A chef will publish in a blog, right, how to cook something. And then a blogger will publish the chef's ingredients and then say, here's how you can cook this. Is the blogger a chef?
Oh, beautiful. Thank you so much, Mr. Mbingo. No. We must recommend you